Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about AEW. We've got to, considering everyone's just still buzzing about that just unbelievable AEW All-Out pay-per-view. Everyone's already looking forward to tomorrow night, Dynamite. What's going to happen tomorrow night on Dynamite? Who knows? We've got an AEW now that exists with the likes of Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, Ruby Soho, CM Punk, all of the Elite, all of these big names coming into AEW, possibly some more in the future. So it's a really exciting time to be talking, watching, listening, and learning about all the happenings in the world of All Elite Wrestling. So let's start off talking about Cody Rhodes. Yes, Executive Vice President of AEW, Cody Rhodes, because it looks like his return is going to be in the very near future, because AEW Executive Vice President Cody Rhodes is set to return to action later this month. Now, Rhodes has been away since suffering the quick loss to Malachi Black on the August 24 homecoming edition of Dynamite from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, after the match, of course, Cody Rhodes gave a speech to the crowd and teased retirement as he went to remove his boots in the middle of the ring. But then he was hit with a crutch by Black before he could get the boots off. He has not been seen on television since then. In reality, of course, he's been away filming Season 2 of the Go Big Show, as was the case last year. This is what I find funny with all this kind of stuff. If you still believe that pro wrestling is real, which I'm not sure many people do unless you're a kid, of course, then you believe everything's real. But if you did legitimately think, there's you have to believe in these stories, wouldn't you go, it's a bit interesting that for 2 years in a row, Cody Rhodes disappears around sort of August time, then comes back in late September, October time. Isn't that interesting, right? That's interesting? It's one of those things. Anyway, in an update, Cody Rhodes is scheduled to make his return to AEW television sometime this month. This is according to a report by Cassidy Haynes of Bodyslam.net, who, of course, has got pretty much everything right when it comes to the world of AEW recently. He was first to break that Bryan Danielson had signed with AEW. That was, 6 weeks ago? Something like that. Bryan Danielson showed up at All Out on Sunday night. He also broke some stories regarding CM Punk and the negotiations about his return, etc. He's been very on point when it comes to AEW, so obviously Cassidy Haynes has some serious sources in All Elite Wrestling. So if he's saying Cody Rhodes is coming back this month, I mean, some people would say, well, of course he's coming back this month. He came back in, was it late September, early October last year? So that's not much of a reach. But if he's saying it, then you would assume that it's probably gospel. Now, there's no word yet on when exactly Cody Rhodes will return to AEW programming, but an upcoming episode of Dynamite is likely. Could be as early as this coming Wednesday, of course, because this coming Wednesday, Malachi Black goes one-on-one with Cody's brother Dustin, so that's a possibility as well. Now, since defeating Rhodes in his AEW in-ring debut, Black has defeated two members of Cody's Nightmare family, Brock Anderson on August 25th and Lee Johnson on September 3rd. Black will face Dustin Rhodes, as I mentioned, during this Wednesday's post-All-Out edition of Dynamite on TNT. The report did note also that there are big plans for Rhodes when he does return. The feud, of course, with Black is expected to continue, which again isn't much of a reach considering that feud obviously isn't finished. Kind of my concern, I think a lot of people's concern, is that we're going to see similar to what we saw last year with Cody and Mr. Brody Lee, in that Malachi Black sends Cody away, Cody comes back, Cody gets his win back, and then Cody moves on. I don't want to see that this time. I want to see Cody come back and I want to see him lose again. And I'm not saying that because I've had some harsh words for Cody here on the channel. I have, and I think a lot of the criticisms that people like myself and other people on social media put to him, a few of them are kind of valid. He's in this weird position where AEW sometimes, and look, there's no doubt Cody Rhodes is a big star. I'm not doubting that, but there is this sort of feeling, isn't there, when it comes to Cody and AEW, that AEW has to constantly remind you or tell you, Cody's a big star, right? And he has the grand entrance and he has the reality show, and just sometimes the way he talks, it's just bizarre. Like the promo he did when he was facing Anthony Ogogo earlier this year, which was just weird, and he turned that into like an American versus UK kind of deal, but different, and he was going to become the American Dream for one evening. It was just very strange, and that kind of feels like sometimes Cody, and then he'll come out in the interviews and he'll say, I workshop my promos, we got to workshop, I kind of focus group it, and it's like, man, stop doing executive speech, my man, you know what I mean? It's kind of like that, in that I mean, I don't know. It depends what you work in, but myself, I've worked in marketing, and I've sat in meetings certainly where you sit around the table and someone's just talking waffle, and that's sometimes what it's like with Cody when you hear him on these media calls and he's trying to be the smartest guy in the room, all this kind of stuff. It's like, what? And because of that and his corporate nature and some of the things he says, he does put his foot in his mouth quite a few times, and he has to go back on it where people go and they roll their eyes at a lot of things Cody Rhodes says, and because of that, just go with it. He gets a mixed reception anyway now, even with an AEW crowd. You'll hear it when he came out during that homecoming edition of Dynamite when he faced off against Malachi Black. The guy had a mixed reception at best. So just do it. Go in that direction. I think most of the AEW audience wants to see Cody Rhodes turn heel at this point. Is the time to do it against Malachi Black? I don't know. I think that should be the precursor to it, though. I would prefer that Cody Rhodes loses once again to Malachi Black. And instead of retiring, he teases the retirement this time, takes the boots off and goes, you know what? I'm not retiring. This is your fault. I do all of this for you and you still boo me. I've heard your boos. I've seen what you've been saying on social media. I've got a baby at home. I've got a wife at home. I helped build this company. I'm an executive vice president of this company. And you're saying about how great it is. And all these people are coming to work here now. That's built on my back. I did that, and you have the nerve to boo me? You should be thanking me. You should be getting down on two knees, worshipping me for everything I've done for this company, for all of you, and you have the nerve to boo me? I mean, it's genius, isn't it? That's definitely the direction that they go in. I don't know if that's the case. They say big plans are in place for Cody when he does return. I think now's the time. I really think now's the time. Maybe he joins the Elite. Right, Cody kind of lives in his separate universe to the Elite. He hasn't had really any interaction with them since they've turned heel. And you had, obviously, All Out close with the Elite, with Adam Cole being added to the group. Why not? Why not have Cody go, you know what, I'm going to go in there. Screw the Nightmare Family stuff, because to be honest, who cares about the Nightmare Family? Nobody does. Nobody does. I like Dustin Rhodes, and obviously he's got his students that are in that in the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta, Georgia, and all that kind of stuff. That's great, but who cares? Literally, who cares? So I would much prefer him go to the Elite, and that whole Nightmare Factory, they just become something else. I don't know. It's a much better storyline. Have Cody turn heel and let's go full Elite. Let's do it. Cody doesn't have to exist in his separate universe, because he kind of does now. He lives in his separate universe. He has his separate storylines. And they're sometimes they're just a bit hit and miss. They feel very sort of self-gratifying sometimes. So, look, Cody Rhodes coming back obviously is a big plus to AEW programming in the sense that Cody's a big talent, but he's at just a really interesting point right now because I just don't think the crowd really want to cheer him that much anymore. And for a company that listens to the crowd and listens to, really takes the pulse of if things are working or not, and is more than happy to change and go in a direction that will please the crowd, fan service, they're one of the biggest fan service companies out there, it feels like now's the time. And that kind of time of people cheering for Cody, everyone acknowledges Cody's good at what he does, but he does come across as very just heelish by proxy. I don't even know if this is his intention. People say, oh, it's always planted the seeds for a heel turn. I don't know if it is, but he just comes across like that. So when he comes back, I think we need something a bit different from Cody Rhodes. Whether or not we'll see that, time will only tell. Now, of course, as I mentioned, we're coming off of AEW All Out this past weekend, and CM Punk's had a lot of interactions with WWE Hall of Famer Sting in recent weeks, of course, before his match against Darby Allin at All Out. Of course, after All Out on Sunday, we saw Sting come out, shake the hand of CM Punk before Punk shook the hand of Darby Allin. Now, in the AEW All Out media scrum, CM Punk was asked if we could see a dream match against the Icon inside of an AEW ring, or possibly teaming with Sting in the future. And this is what Punk had to say. He said, quote, I hate saying the word blessed, I'm not a religious guy, I've had such an amazing life where I found myself in situations where I could just look around like, man, this is wild. And without ever having a bucket list, it's hard for me to write things down on the bucket list because I've done so many cool things. Yeah, that's one of them. That's a bucket list thing. It's an item that I never thought I would have because your brain doesn't go there. We were never in the same company at the same time. We're two different generation wrestlers, and you just never thought it was possible. And now, that's kind of how I feel about the entire groundswell of AEW as a whole. You got me, Darby, and Sting in the ring, and it's legitimately three different generations, and the knowledge of wealth that he brings, it's a bucket list item now. I think for sure down the line we're probably going to tag. I feel like there's something there. So I think it's interesting because at the end of All Out when he came out, I'm just so conditioned to like angles, I suppose. Growing up in the 90s and early 2000s watching pro wrestling, I'm preconditioned to if someone puts out their hand to shake it, immediately they're going to shake it and then they turn around and they attack them because that's pro wrestling, right? At the end of the day, that just feels like what we're conditioned to think. So when Sting came out, I thought, I tell you what, Punk's going to attack him. Punk's going to be like, okay, grab the hand, pull him in, put him up GTS. You just GTS Sting. And then he looks into the camera and says, I'm back, by the way. Not only did I beat Darby Allin, I laid out Sting. I don't think they're going in that direction. I don't know if they're ever going to have a match against each other at this point in Sting's life, let alone career. Given his advanced age, given his physical limitations, etc., I don't think Sting's going to have a singles match. Even against a CM Punk, I don't know how that match would really look, to be honest, in terms of optics, in terms of a guy in his 60s against a guy in his 40s that hasn't really wrestled in the last 7.5 years. It seems a lot of a risk. I certainly could see, though, like Punk said, certainly a tag match. Maybe not Sting and Punk just being tag team partners themselves, but we've almost established at this point that Punk, Darby, and Sting have mutual respect for each other. So there certainly is a point, and I think they're probably going to go in this direction, where you could do a 6-man tag, a trios match, if you will, like they call it in AEW. Punk, Sting, Darby versus Daniel Garcia 2.0. That adds up perfectly, I think, to me. I would be really surprised if they don't do that match in the next... even 2 to 3 weeks, legitimately. 2 to 3 weeks, I could see them doing Sting, Darby, Punk versus Daniel Garcia 2.0. Massive, massive opportunity for Garcia in 2.0. Of course, they would not win, but still, just a massive, massive opportunity for them. And I don't know what it would do in terms of Punk and Darby. Where does it progress that story? They're going to have a rematch. They're going to tag with each other. Are they going to become the first trios tag team champions? Who knows what they could do? But I think that's a real likely possibility. And I think it's going to happen in the real close future. As I mentioned, next 2 to 3 weeks, I think is a real possibility. So we'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. Speaking of the future, this was something that was reported last week, but it's been confirmed now. AEW is set to debut in Long Island, New York later this year. AEW has officially announced they will debut at the new UBS Arena in Belmont, New York on Wednesday, December 8th for a live Dynamite episode and a Rampage taping. This will be AEW's Long Island debut. Tickets go on sale Friday, September 10 at 10 p.m. Eastern via Ticketmaster and will start at $30 plus fees. WWE, of course, will make their debut at the new state-of-the-art UBS Arena on Monday, November 29 for a live Raw episode, with Dynamite coming just a few days after that. So it's very exciting, very, very exciting for AEW. It's a big arena for them to run, but I think at this point, previously there would have been discussions, can AEW fill out those arenas? AEW are trying to do WWE arenas now. Can they do that? The evidence, I think, is there from this past weekend, All Out, to be honest with you, that was a 10,000-seater arena, and for Dynamite and Rampage, that's fine, but certainly for the pay-per-view, I think everyone was going, man, there could be twice the amount of people in here, and it would sell out. They sold out the United Center based on a rumor. Obviously, Long Island isn't Chicago, but it's still New York. It's still a very strong pro wrestling crowd and still a very strong pro wrestling area. I have no doubts in my mind, especially the momentum that AEW has right now, especially the buzz that this company has right now. I have no doubt in my mind they'll be able to sell it out. Not a problem at all, to be honest with you. With the names that they have, and most importantly, the buzz that they have, I'd be stunned if it didn't sell out. And not just that, sell out very quickly. I think that's a real possibility. So, exciting to see that in December. Bryan Danielson, of course, made his AEW debut on Sunday night at All Out, and he spoke about afterwards in the All Out media scrum, he spoke about the decision to sign with AEW instead of re-signing with WWE. He did mention it was a decision that Danielson, who wrestled, of course, for over a decade with WWE, didn't come lightly, and he, in fact, struggled with it. He said, quote, honestly, it was an internal battle the whole time, because I loved where I worked before. I did. I loved the people I worked with. There was never a moment where I was like, oh, now I know. It's just I kept seeing it. I don't know how many of you are married and have kids. When you're married and you have kids, your life becomes a little tame. I love it, but it's a little tame. I need one part of my life that's a little wild. Like, oh man, did you see those guys doing those crazy things? Oh my God, can I do those things? Hell yes, I can. I don't care. I'm going to go out there and show everybody here what Elite really looks like. This is what Elite looks like. Punk has come in and said, oh, I want to help the young guys and all that stuff. No, man, I want to kick their effing heads in. Now, when it comes to Bryan Danielson, rather, I'm going to slip up so many times with that, even though Bryan Danielson was what he was called before WWE, and that's his real name, so he should be called Bryan Danielson. I think it's fascinating, that as an explanation. The reason I think it's fascinating is because you've got, on one hand, you got CM Punk, right? You got CM Punk, who at this point, is anti-WWE. Obviously, he was anti-WWE when he worked there, but certainly now, certainly given everything that happened to him and firing him on his wedding day, the litigation, it's all the bad blood and all that kind of stuff that's gone on between him and WWE, and just his philosophy of this WWE, that's not how you should produce pro wrestling. That isn't how you should present pro wrestling. It shouldn't be a corporate environment. Shouldn't be scripted promo. Shouldn't be all of these producers, all that kind of stuff. That's him. And obviously he was going to go in AEW. So you've got him in AEW, who's very much like, this is the place to be because it's not that other place. That other place sucks. I hate that other place. This is the way of pro wrestling that I fell in love with, blah, blah, blah. That's CM Punk. On the other hand, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you've got Bryan Danielson, who's in AEW as well, but he's saying, look, I loved it there. I still love it there. I love the people there. I had a great decade there. I love the people. Legitimately, I've got family there. I've got my wife there. I've got my father-in-law there. All that kind of stuff. I love it. I love that company, and it's not a case of, I would desperately wanted to leave or anything like that, but I had to come here because this is the place to be. This is pro wrestling. This is exciting. This has buzz. I needed to be here because it's just I can't turn down that kind of opportunity. That, for me, is far, far more damning than the guy that's in AEW that's saying, I'm here and I would always be here, but I hate the other place. The guy that says, I love that other place and I was very, very happy there, but I had to come here because this place is just so great. That's far more damning on WWE. Far more damning on WWE because he's saying, I love it there, but still, this place is better. And I think that's kind of the feeling now when it comes to AEW and WWE. Mick Foley did a post about it. I was going to include it in this video, but I think it's more of a WWE topic. So we'll talk about it tomorrow in tomorrow's WWE news video. But it's just a case of now, at this point, WWE isn't, it's not that just WWE isn't cool, but it's just got no buzz. It's got no buzz about it. It's got no momentum. Not a lot to really be excited about. AEW's got this buzz and this momentum. People are excited. People are energized about it. And you haven't been like that for the WWE product in such a long time. A really, really long time. Someone myself who is probably a jaded pro wrestling fan and has watched it since I was 3 years old, or whatever that may be. Over 20 years at this point, right? Nearly 20-something years. Over 20 years, rather. And it's just a case of, at this point, I just kind of... myself with WWE, I look at that and just go, it's got no buzz. It's just not got a lot. Don't get me wrong, they do good matches. Sometimes the show's all right. SmackDown's fine. But AEW just has this buzz about it at the moment that just WWE doesn't have. And I think that's so interesting that Bryan would say that because it's so true. It is so true. They have the best roster in the world right now. And they've just got this energy, this momentum. And I think it speaks volumes. I really do think it speaks volumes. Speaking of Bryan as well, he sent out a tweet. He actually lost his verified tick because he changed his name. Previously, of course, he was at WWE Daniel Bryan. Now he's just at Bryan Danielson. So he's lost his verified tick. He'll get it back very, very quickly. But Bryan Danielson says he is officially All Elite. After making his AEW debut at the end of the All Out pay-per-view, Danielson took to Twitter on Monday morning and issued his first public statements to the fans. He said, he also, as I mentioned, he's now tweeting from at Bryan Danielson, and revealed news on his official theme song. He thanked everyone in AEW and said he's ready to kick some heads in. He said, quote, "Thank you to the men and women who have worked so hard to make AEW what it is today. I'm still buzzing from last night, and that was only possible because of what you built. I am #AllElite. Now it's time to kick some effing heads in." Danielson also revealed that Elliot Taylor created his Born for Greatness theme song. He said, quote, "Speaking of kicking people's heads in, many thanks and love to the incredible Elliot Taylor for making my entrance music. It got me pumped." Now, the song is now available on all major streaming services. Taylor commented after last night's debut All Out. He said, quote, "Yo, strap in, my boy Bryan Danielson just took over the entire world of wrestling, walking out to my new song, Born for Greatness. Just a preview of what's to come. Thank you for trusting me, brother. Love you. You got the whole squad shivering. Time to take what's yours. Remember, you were born for greatness. AEW, thank you, Tony Khan." And look, it's a great theme song. I think a lot of people have been talking about it. AEW's had a lot of criticism about theme songs, especially in its early days, and I think they were valid. The theme songs felt very just sort of bad, or just like generic and not great, but Adam Cole's theme song is great. really, really good. Better than his new NXT one that he had. I don't think anyone can top the CFO's Undisputed Era theme song, but this is kind of a rip-off of that, it must be said. But still, it's very, very good. Very good. And I thought Bryan Danielson's, I will get there in the end, was excellent as well. So, credit to AEW for really upping their games when it comes to the theme songs. Finally, Adam Cole, of course, showed up at AEW All Out on Sunday as well, and he spoke about his decision to go to AEW as well, and his decision to sign for AEW. Now, he said, quote, and it's no knock whatsoever on them, WWE. I had a very excellent 4-year experience, but I wanted to come back and work with a crew who I love being around 24/7. And it's a crew that is just as passionate about pro wrestling as I am, and the fans that feel the exact same way that we do. So making the decision was a fairly easy one. He mentioned as well about his Twitch stream and all that kind of stuff. I think, as I mentioned in the post show and I spoke about yesterday, it's obviously the right decision for Adam Cole. I have no doubts in my mind about that. And, he spoke about his meeting he had with Vince McMahon and all that kind of stuff. And he said it was a great meeting. I had a very enjoyable time speaking to him and all that kind of stuff. But again, I mentioned this so many times talking about Adam Cole prior to him making his AEW debut. Just if you put up the pros and cons of going to AEW, there were just far more pros. Gets to keep his Twitch stream. Obviously, as well, he gets less dates, but same amount of money, working with people he knows. He's got a better opportunity to succeed based on his size, and he can trust the creative process. I mean, it's just, there's so many things that he just wouldn't get in WWE, and he's seeing a brand that he outbuilt for 4 years just get ripped apart and rebranded, and some of his friends are getting fired like Bobby Fish, and you can't trust the creative process. All of it, it's just, you just knew that. For me, if I was him, like I said before, it would be a very easy decision. And that's exactly what he said. It was a fairly easy decision. And now he's in AEW, which I think is the right place for him. I truly do. Speaking of Adam Cole as well, there was some notes from Fightful Select, which of course is their Patreon service. Be sure to check that out, about his AEW debut. He said, quote, this is what Sean Ross Sapp said, Adam Cole's AEW debut at Sunday's All Out pay-per-view did not come as a major surprise to many within WWE, as much of the company expected him to sign with the company as of last weekend. It was noted that WWE had operated on the assumption that Cole was as good as gone by the time that the officials sent the internal memo to others in the company back on Monday, August 30th. People in WWE had nothing but positive things to say about Cole on his way out, especially over the way he handled the surprise contract expiration and the extension. Now, Cole was hidden at the Now Arena on Sunday during the All Out pay-per-view, and it appears he told no one within WWE that he would be debuting at the show. Word is that Cole's deal with AEW was not official until Sunday, but those who needed to know were informed well ahead of time. The finish of the All Out pay-per-view was discussed among the wrestlers involved late in the evening after CM Punk's win over Darby Allin. So, obviously, I think that ending to All Out on Sunday is one of the best endings ever in pro wrestling history, in terms of pay-per-view history and in sort of this modern time. It's right up there. The double surprise, and just what a show. Not more needs to be said about it because it was incredible. And like you, already excited and waiting for Wednesday night. So I'm fascinated to what they pull out on that show, which obviously got some things announced, but the big stuff when it comes to Punk and when it comes to Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson is still kind of up in the air. So like you, I'm very excited for it. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.